Meeting will please come to order. I would ask everyone to stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight's invocation is being offered by Council Member Phil Claiborne.
Would you bow your heads and pray with me, please? Our mighty God and Creator, we stand before you tonight as an elected body representing the people in the interest of this city, and we're aware, Lord, of our presence here and the fact that it's in your divine plan. The scripture plainly states in the book of Romans that there is no authority except that which is established by God. We are grateful, Lord, for the opportunity and the privilege that you've allowed each of us to experience as we sit in this chamber week to week and conduct the business of this great city. We are thankful for the blessings that you've allowed our city to experience in the past years when so many places have struggled and continue to do so. May we never take for granted the benefits that are ours, nor the source from which these benefits come. I ask that you might be merciful to those in our city tonight who are hurting and fearful, whether their need be physical or emotional, that you would comfort them with your presence and help them to understand that you have a plan and a purpose for each life. In like manner, I ask that you be near to those who protect us during the days and nights of our life, whether they be local police or fire, medical personnel, the men and women who wear the uniform of our country, serve in foreign places. Protect them, Lord, and their families with your mighty hand, and reward them for the service that they perform. Help us now as we consider the items on this agenda before us. May we do so in a spirit of single-minded cooperation that focused on doing what is best for those that we represent and for our city at large. I ask these things in the name of Jesus Christ, your Son and our Savior. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Without objection, we'll suspend the calling of the roll and ask the clerk to record the names of the members present throughout the meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of our March 4th meeting? Have a motion and a second. Without objection, the minutes will stand approved as written. Madam Clerk, are there any messages from the mayor?
There are no messages from the mayor.
Thank you. Tonight we have two presentations. Councilmember Langster.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to ask members of the council who even though it's my proclamation, I would like to ask Councilman Potts to read it. The recipient, my sister-in-law, lives in Councilman Potts' district, and I'd like to show him the proper respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady. We're here to honor Sandra Rennell Darden Taylor. Whereas on February 7, 2014, Sandra Rennell Darden Taylor completed her remarkable and distinguished career in the Department of the Treasury Internal Revenue Service with the federal government after 27 years of exemplary public service as a public servant. She received numerous awards and recognition, and whereas an acting supervisory contact representative, she managed a team of 15 customer service representatives with the Internal Revenue Service. During that time, her team was honored with a Quality Customer Service Award for the quarter. Next, she became a dedicated lead customer service representative to an outstanding team of employees into retirement. Whereas she is deeply devoted to her family as a loving and supporting wife to her husband, Wallace Harrison Taylor Jr., a loving mother to her daughter, Kristen, a law student at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, daughter of a wonderful mother, Bobby Lee Darden, sister to Rosaline Green, and brother, Robert Lloyd Darden Jr. of Dallas, Texas, and her loving mother-in-law, Willa D. Taylor, and sister-in-law, Councilwoman Edith Taylor Langster, and a host of other family members and friends. Whereas it is fitting and proper, the Metropolitan Council recognizes Sandra Rennell Darden Taylor for the great service she has given to the Department of the Treasury Internal Revenue Service, and wish her a happy and gratifying retirement and ever continued success in her future endeavors. And by the way, it is Sandra's birthday, so everybody wish her a happy birthday. And she would like to say a few words.
Thank you.
Come stand here, Kristen.
So I won't forget anything. I want to thank you, Councilmember Jason Potts and Councilmember Edith Taylor Langster, and all the members of the council. It has really been a pleasure, and I truly feel honored. And I want to thank you so much, and keep up the good work for Nashville. Thank you.
Our next presentation is by Councilmember Bedney.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I take great pride on bringing this recognition to a fellow immigrant, Latina, who's started this company and is make it into a big source of jobs and tax revenue for Nashville and Middle Tennessee. So I wanted to ask you to join me if you wish to come and present this resolution. This is a resolution recognizing Guy Brown on being selected the 2013 National Supplier of the Year. Whereas Guy Brown, a certified minority woman business enterprise based in Brentwood, Tennessee, was selected as the 2013 National Supplier of the Year by the National Minority Supplier Development Council. And whereas Guy Brown was selected from among a total of 21 nominees for Class 4 Regional Supplier of the Year, and whereas Guy Brown was founded in 1997 as a manufacturer of recycled toner cartridges for laser printers using advanced remanufacturing processes, and has since expanded its products and services to national clients offering that include office products, furniture, print solutions, promotional marketing, and facility resources. And whereas Guy Brown operates under the strong corporate leadership of the Hispanic American Tera Vasquez and a subcontinent of Asian Chaiwan, and demonstrating that diversity in leadership is strong and effective, and whereas Guy Brown supports ongoing diversity through product offerings, equal opportunity hiring practices, and partnerships with MWABE suppliers, and whereas Guy Brown is building sustainability initiatives that meet environmental, economical, and social needs and encourages active philanthropy throughout community involvement and charitable contributions. And whereas Guy Brown is dedicated to serving its community with the same care and enthusiasm with which it serves its customers. Its associates donate time and money to organizations including Meals on Wheels, Habitat for Humanity, Tennessee Latin American Chamber of Commerce, American Red Cross, Second Harvest, Food Bank, and Toys for Tots. And whereas Guy Brown customers are at the core of everything they do, and they are committed to providing unparalleled customer responsive and service, and whereas Guy Brown employees operate in an atmosphere of openness, trust, and accountability in which they are empowered to make decisions benefiting both the company and their customers. Whereas it's fitting and proper that the Metropolitan Council recognizes Guy Brown for constantly refining its internal processes and working with its vendors to ensure maximum sustainability and protection of the world we live in. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County that it goes on record recognizing Guy Brown on being selected as the 2013 National Supplier of the Year. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much. I'm going to do my best to be very brief, which is not like my character, so we'll start there. But I wanted to start by thanking you, Councilmember Bedney. This is really an honor, and to all the council members. I have been working with Guy Brown for north of 14 years, and we have always been very cognizant of how we socially develop and environmentally develop our organization. We're committed to true growth in everything that we do. I'd like to thank Cherry Henderson from what is now the Tri-State National Minority Supplier Development Council, and Kaiser Permanente for their nomination, who has been a long and strong customer of our organization. And with that, thank you very much, and this is really, truly an honor.
We're now at elections and confirmations. Councilmember Berry.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The Rules Committee met, and we deferred the reappointment of Mr. Thomas Lipscomb Jr. For one meeting, 6-4, 0 against, and I move approval.
We have a motion and a second on the deferral. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes.
On the reappointment of Mr. John Allert for the Fire and Building Code Appeals Board, we voted 6-4, 0 against. For the Board of Zoning Appeals and the reappointment of Mr. David Ewing, the reappointment of Mr. David Harper, the reappointment of Mr. Richard King, we voted 6-4, 0 against for all, and I move approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. When I call your name, please stand and remain standing. John Orlett, David Ewing, David Harper, Richard King. On behalf of the entire Metropolitan Council, thank you for your willingness to donate your time and your expertise for our great city. Thank you very much. We're now at bills on public hearing. We have BL 2014-699, approves amendments to the Arts Center, Capitol Mall, Jefferson Street, and the Rutledge Hill redevelopment plans. Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Move to open the public hearing, please.
Please raise your hand if you're in support. Thank you. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition. Seeing no one in opposition, would anyone in support wish to speak? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you. I move for approval.
Needs a couple of committee reports.
Oh, I'm sorry. I jumped the gun. Please forgive me.
No problem. Councilmember Hunt.
Planning and Zoning Historical Committee approved 9-4-0 against.
Councilmember Stein.
Budget and Finance approved 7-4, none against.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're now at the resolutions on the consent agenda. I will read those that are on consent, and then you can tell me if any need to be pulled. RS 2014-1015 through 1027 are on the consent agenda. 948 is not, 1028 is not, and 1029 is not. We'll deal with that in a late filed resolution after we deal with the consent agenda. 1015 calls the Metro Board of Equalization into regular session beginning June 2nd, 2014, and a special session beginning June 23rd, 2014. 1016 approves a third amendment to the lease agreement between Metro Government and Square Investment Holdings, LP for the lease of office space in the Washington Square building located at 222 2nd Avenue North in the Criminal Justice Planning Unit. 1017 approves a grant to the Metro Nashville Fire Department to purchase animal oxygen masks. 1018 approves an agreement between the State Department of Health and the Metro Board of Health to fund various programs addressing family tobacco use. 1019 approves a grant from the State Department of Health to the Metro Board of Health to provide tobacco use prevention services. 1020 approves an amendment to a grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to the Metro Board of Health to enhance access to community-based care for low-income individuals and families with HIV disease. 1021 approves a grant from the State Department of Health to the Metro Board of Health for chronic disease management and school health promotion services. 1022 approves a grant from the State Department of Health to the Metro Board of Health for implementation of the state immunization program. 1023 approves an amendment to the agreement between the U.S. Army and the Metro Water and Sewer Services for the Mill Creek Watershed Feasibility Study. 1024 classifies public roads in Davidson County, Tennessee. 1025 authorizes Luigi's City Pizza to construct and install an aerial encroachment at 305 Broadway. 1026 authorizes Whitefront Garage Partners to construct and install an aerial encroachment on 207 2nd Avenue North. And 1027 authorizes the Department of Law to settle the personal injury claim of Bandy Brown against Metro government in the amount of $13,400. Do any of these need to be pulled? Seeing none, I need committee reports. Councilmember Stein.
Budget and Finance approved 1015, 1016, 1017, 1018, 1019, 1020, 1021, and 1022, 7-4, none against, and 1023 and 1027, 8-4, and none against.
Thank you, Councilman Stein, and happy birthday. Councilmember Maynard, Health and Hospitals. Councilmember Bedney, Health and Hospitals.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. 1018, 1019, 1020, 1021, and 1022 were approved, 340 against.
Thank you. Councilmember Hunt.
Thank you. Planning and Zoning approved 1016, 1024, 1025, and 1026, 940 against.
Thank you. Councilmember Purdue.
Public Safety approved 1017, 540 against.
Councilmember Bennett.
Public Works approved 1023, 24, 25, 26, 4-4, 0 against.
Thank you. Councilmember Berry.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Rules approved 1028, 4, 1 against. And with that, I move approval of the consent agenda.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We'll now go back to RS 2014-948, appropriates $4,300,000 from the undesignated fund balance of the general fund of the General Services District to Metro Schools to fund the purchase of laptop computers. Councilmember Mitchell.
Yeah, with recent action of the Tennessee General Assembly, I think it may be prudent to put this off for a couple of weeks until we see if part testing may just be deferred for a few years here in Tennessee, hopefully. So with that being said, I would move for indefinite deferral.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of indefinite deferral, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2014-1028 recognizes Metro Transit Authority CEO Paul Ballard for his outstanding service. Councilmember Stein.
Committee report.
Councilmember Berry.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee voted 4, 1 against.
Thank you, Councilmember Stein.
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2014-1029 requests the state of Tennessee to offer driver's license examinations in Arabic. Councilmember Johnson.
I would like to move to defer one meeting.
Councilmember Berry.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The committee voted to defer one meeting, 6-4, 0 against.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you. I'd like to move to defer one meeting.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. And I also need to wish Councilmember Sherry Weiner a happy birthday. We have 2 birthdays here today. So we're now at bills on introduction and first reading. No, I'm sorry. We have a late filed resolution. I almost skipped Councilmember Matthews. Councilmember Matthews, what is the nature of the emergency?
This resolution is being filed in support of enabling legislation that's being introduced at the state level regarding codes enforcement of the Landlord-Tenant Act.
Is there any objection? Seeing none, This late-filed resolution supports House Bill 2276 and Senate Bill 2413 to require landlords registering in Davidson County to provide physical addresses to the Codes Department and to notify the department of a change in ownership. Councilmember Matthews.
I'd like to move approval with a brief explanation.
We have
And
a
I need committee reports. This was
Councilmember
in
Moore.
codes.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Codes, Fire, and Farmers Market approved, 6-4-0 against.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. Councilmember Matthews.
I now move approval with a brief explanation.
We have a motion and a second.
Thank you.
Councilman.
Sorry about that, Madam President. This legislation has been introduced to the House Senate Committee on today. It will be in the State Senate Committee. It will be in the State House Committee on next week. This is simply going to amend the Landlord Tenant Act and require a physical address. Codes, they actually brought this up a couple of years ago, and it's very hard for them to enforce or issue a citation or have the Sheriff's Department deliver a citation to a P.O. box. And when they don't have a physical address of landlords, it's very hard for them to enforce code violations. This is going to help your districts. This is going to help neighborhoods in your districts to be able to better enforce codes violations. And I hope that you all will support it because this is going to strengthen our city. So I ask for your support.
Councilmember Scott Davis.
I stand in support alongside the gentleman from North Nashville, Mr. Matthews. It's a great bill. I just want to thank those of you who live in some of the other areas that have assisted me in finding those bad landlords. If you saw recently the issue I had with a large property on Channel 4 in my district and not being able to serve the landlord, to bring him in environmental court, to deal with having no heat and having, me having a lot of fires on Dickerson Road over the holiday season. And I also want to thank those council members like Carter Todd that when their residents act badly in my neighborhood, he sides with my people and sides with me against that bad landlord who may be hiding out there in other districts. So thank you, Mr. Todd, for having my back during this holiday season with that issue. And I want to continue to support Mr. Matthews' in this bill.
Should the council member not be addressing the chair instead of individual council members?
I apologize, but this is important. This is an important issue.
He apologized. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Neighbor. I, too, rise in support of this legislation. Just want to commend Councilman Matthews and the entire Codes Department because this is smart legislation. And we have had a number of issues in this council in regards to trying to address codes issues and not being able to locate the landlord and property owner. So, again, I commend you for this legislation. It's smart, and I just wanted to rise in support. Thank you.
Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I just wanted to recognize State Representative Brenda Gilmore and Senator Henry for carrying this legislation on the state level and being willing to work with our codes departments.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Now we're on bills on introduction and first reading. Do any of them need to be pulled? Seeing none, is there a motion for their approval? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're now at bills on second reading. BL 2014-685 amends the Metro Zoning Code to modify the general requirements of public notice signs. Councilmember Hunt.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I have to ask for suspension of the rules, please.
Give your committee report and then suspend the rules.
Need a committee report?
It's you.
It's me. Okay. Planning and zoning. Deferred one meeting, 9-0, and I need to ask for a suspension of rules.
So that the council can basically act as the committee of the whole.
Okay, is there any objection to a suspension of the rules? Seeing none, Councilmember Hunt.
I ask for suspension of rule because this bill was deferred in committee to review the language as it pertained to who would be the applicant responsible for paying and installing zoning signs, whether it be the developer, the community members, or the council member. We found out that we needed a separate bill in order to achieve this, so that's why I needed suspension of rule to bring this bill 685 forward tonight, and I would move for approval.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes, the committee at the chair's request last night voted to recommend deferral of the bill. As Councilman Hunt stated, he has learned since then that the bill could not be amended in its present form to accomplish his intent, and therefore the reason for deferral no longer exists. And so the bill had been presented by the planning department, and so the suspension of the rules request was to allow the council to go ahead and consider it tonight.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Claiborne.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So who is the responsible party here?
Mr. Cooper, will you answer that? Because there's two parts of this.
Basically, all this bill does is codify the existing practice as it applies to the planning department public hearings, so that the practice for the council public hearing notice is the same. And that is the applicant, which in almost all cases is the property owner or developer, is responsible for having the signs printed, the public notice signs printed. That is currently the case. But right now, for council public hearing signs, they return those signs to the planning department, and then the planning department or the codes department goes out and sticks them in the ground. This would require the applicant, developer, or property owner to go out and put the signs in the ground like they do for the notice for planning commission public hearing. If the council member is the applicant, the council member would have the choice of either posting the signs themselves or having the planning department do it.
Does the council member pay for the signs?
It depends on the nature of the rezoning. If it is a down zoning, then there are no fees associated with that as provided in the code. But for the public notice signs, it's my understanding that the council member or the neighborhood that the rezoning is being done for is required to pay for the signs. Planning can correct me if that's wrong.
That is correct. For the signs for a council-led bill, if it's not a downzoning, then either the council member themselves pays for the signs, or oftentimes they'll ask their neighborhood who's seeking the rezoning to pay for those signs.
So does the council member have to put the signs out? I lost on that.
Right now, the council member can either take them back to the codes department or post them, and that will continue. This bill does not change the role of the council member in the public notice process. This is primarily dealing just with developers and private property owners.
Councilmember Duvall.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As a council member that ended up paying for some rezoning signs, and not that I mind paying for it, but I don't believe that when council members in this body are conducting the city's business and the business of the people should have to pay out of their pockets for those zoning signs and those meeting signs. And I think that entire budget, if we can incorporate that in some type of an amendment that doesn't happen that often, that should be incorporated into this bill.
The caption of that bill, of this bill, would not allow that, which is part of the issue that Councilman Hunt was talking about yesterday. In order to change anything about who the applicant is or who pays for what, that would require a separate bill. This bill just deals with who is responsible for sticking the signs in the ground.
Well, I would encourage the sponsor, and I appreciate you bringing this issue forward, that we take a real hard look at this body whenever we carry out something for the people in our community, not councilmen not be stuck with the bill. I don't think the people of their district would even want that to be. So that's where I stand. Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Neighbors. I would like to also maybe encourage the sponsor to look at amending this bill if possible. The issue that I see here is when the planning committee, we did the UDO, the Urban Design Overlay, which was led by the Planning Commission and with their assistance, but yet we as council members had to pay for over 30 signs out of our pockets. You know, does this bill address, you know, something of that sort happening as well? I know that the downzoning has been an issue in some instances, but what about when the council member has to pay out of pocket for urban design overlay or something that we're working in collaboration with planning?
This bill does not address the cost of signs, and it cannot be amended to address the cost of signs. That would have to be a separate bill.
Well, and the other issue with this bill is, you know, I have a current downzoning and have had in the past a couple in Nashville Village, and the issue is that, you know, I'm asked to pay for the signs, but deliver them to the Planning Commission for the Planning Commission to put those signs out. What I'm hearing with this bill is that we're supposed to be putting those signs out. So I need some clarification on that.
Mr. Cooper.
You would have the choice of either having the codes or planning department put the signs out, or you could do it yourself. It would be your choice as the council member applicant.
So this bill changes that, or it just keeps it the same, because that was never communicated?
It keeps the practice the same, but it codifies the practice so that everybody knows the rules going forward.
So it places it in writing, so it's just not understood. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mr. Cooper, I'm trying to understand, so there's not a cost for the downzoning as it relates to the signs, but there will be a cost if there was just some type of zoning that was council initiated? Is that what this is
That is not what this does. That's what the current law does. That's another section. This ordinance only addresses literally the physical posting of the signs. The ordinance related to which zoning bills are without fees and cost is a separate provision that would have to be addressed in a separate ordinance.
Okay, and so we're amending this, you're saying, because it gives the council person the option, but it seems like there was 3 parts to this bill. I understand the part about if the council person wants to pick up the signs or not, but it seems like I heard
Really,
2 other parts to it.
The council is not part of this bill. This bill is addressed at the developers and private property owners who are applicants to clarify and codify that they are responsible for physically posting the signs. The practice as it relates to the council members themselves would not be changed.
So what were the developers and property owners doing prior to this that we need to codify it?
Right now, the Planning Commission, you know, there's 2 separate public hearings. There's a public hearing at the Planning Commission, and then it comes to the council, and there's a public hearing at the council. The Planning Commission rules and policies require the applicant, developer, property owner, to post the signs for Planning Commission public hearings. But for council public hearings, which is governed by the zoning code, not their rules, that provision was not written in there. So this just makes the 2 policies consistent.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dow.
I just want a clarification about the signage. You mentioned that if it's a zoning change that's initiated by the council member, then the council member would be responsible for the signs. And the reason why I asked for the clarification is because we imposed, as you know, a urban design overlay and did some things as a result of updating our community plan, and the financial responsibility was placed upon us. And then with purchasing the signs, when we delivered them to the planning office to put out, the signs were never returned. So is there something to clarify that if you put the signs out, you're going to return our signs back, or how does that work?
The bill does not, the way it works right now, the applicant can go and pick up their signs after the date has passed if they want to gather those back up and reuse them. And I know some council members have done that in the past. But the planning and code staff do not go back out and gather those up unless we are the applicant and we are trying to save money by reusing them.
Councilmember Bedney.
Well, you guys notice that we all are concerned about this because we have a lot of issues of zoning in our area. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I wanted to ask John Cooper one more question. Is there anything in this legislation that will make it harder for us to create legislation in the future that deals with who pays for those signs?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Councilmember Glover.
I may be the last one, but call the question.
We have a motion and a second for previous question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Previous question passes. We're back on the bill. All in favor, please say aye.
Madam.
Opposed, no. Sorry, Councilman Hunt. We're on previous question.
Okay, go ahead.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no.
No. That was actually on the motion on the main bill.
Right.
So it passed.
It passes. Councilman Hunt, your bill passes.
Thank you.
Next is BL 2014-695, names the Shelby Street pedestrian bridge in honor of John Siegenthaler. Councilmember Stein.
Committee reports.
Councilmember Hunt.
Planning and zoning approved, 9-4-0 against.
Councilmember Bennett.
Public Works approved 4-4, 0 against.
Councilmember Stein.
I move approval with a comment.
Have a motion and a second. Councilman Stein.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. For almost 50 years, few Nashvillians have had the enormous impact of John Siegenthaler in our community, and indeed on our state and on our entire nation. He has been a consistent, powerful voice for progress and equality. I won't go through his extraordinary resume. Most already know it, and if you don't, I encourage you to Google it. You can believe now most everything that Wikipedia writes about him. He is deserving of this honor, and that is unquestioned. But some may ask, why this particular structure? I will tell you. On October 5, 1954, the Tennessean got a phone call from a Gene Williams who said he was going to jump off the Shelby Street Bridge and to send a reporter and a photographer to get a good story. The young reporter that was assigned to the story was John Siegenthaler. He spent 40 minutes on the bridge trying to talk the man from jumping off. As the man disregarded the conversation and began to jump, Mr. Siegenthaler and the police grabbed him and saved him on that day of October 5, 1954. As a city, we understandably don't do things like this very often, but John Siegenthaler has done so very much, always with the support of his wonderful wife, Dolores, that he stands unique in his place in our city's history. For his many accomplishments, for all he has stood for, and for the role model that he is for those of us that follow, this ordinance is a fitting tribute, and I ask your support.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2014-696 amends the Metro Code to require the Director of Finance to submit an annual debt report to the Council and at the time the mayor's proposed operating budget is submitted. Councilmember Claiborne.
Committee report, please.
Councilmember Stein.
Budget and Finance voted to defer one meeting, 8-4, none against.
Councilmember Claiborne.
I would move to defer one meeting with a brief explanation.
We have a motion and a second. Councilman.
When this legislation was filed 2 weeks ago, the intent was that as we have a budget proposal, or the council going forward has a budget proposal each year, that they also be able to get an accurate picture of what the city's debt is like. And so since filing the legislation, several of you in the chamber have come to me and said, could we include this? Could we look at this? We've asked Mr. Riebling to take a look at it, and he's had some input into it. And so we're still in the process of trying to incorporate all of the additional requests or information and make sure that the bill, once it comes to us for a vote, is in the best form that it can be. And so at the request of some parties for additional time, then I'm asking for a one meeting deferral, and hopefully we'll be back at the next meeting with a bill that is in its final form and will help us in moving forward. So I renew my request to defer for one meeting.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2014-697 amends the Metro Code to exempt existing on-premises beer permit holders from the distance requirement in regard to the sale of beer near school property when a new school locates within 100 feet of the existing establishment. Councilmember Blaylock.
Thank you. Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Purdue.
Public safety deferred at one meeting by rule.
Thank you. Councilmember Blaylock.
Thank you. I'd like to divert this one meeting.
We have a motion and a second for a one meeting deferral. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2014-698 amends the Metro Code pertaining to the enforcement mechanism associated with the discontinuation of the delivery of non-subscription published material. Councilmember Claiborne.
Committee report, please.
Councilmember Moore.
The committee voted to defer 1 for, 3 against, and 2 abstentions. Did I say that right? Yeah. They voted to defer. Oh, defer one meeting, I'm sorry.
Okay, we have okay, Councilmember Claiborne.
I would like to move to defer this until the second meeting in May and make a brief explanation.
We have a motion and a second. Councilman?
Having got the attention of the Tennessean regarding this yellow package that we see all over the city, and to honor their request to address their problem, I'm willing to defer this until the second meeting in May and allow them to come back to us with their proposals as to how they're going to address not only this package, but other similar problems that are related to this. They say that they're willing to do that they have a sincere interest to do that. And I'm willing to see what they have to say when they come back. So I think waiting until the second meeting in May will give them ample time to get their heads together, to put together their proposals, and come back to us, and we'll see whether we need to go forward with this or not. So I renew my request to defer to the second meeting in May.
All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion to defer passes. BL 2014-700 approves a lease agreement between the Nashville Fire Department and Southern Land Commercial Construction, LLC for property located at 2025 Richard Jones Road. Councilmember Stein.
Committee reports.
Councilmember Purdue.
Public and safety passed at 5-0.
Thank you. Councilmember Hunt.
Planning and zoning approved Bill 700 and 940 against.
Councilmember Stein.
Budget and Finance approved 8-4, none against. I move approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2014-701 amends the Geographic Information System Street and Alley Center Line layer by changing the name of the Hermitage Park Lane to Cross Hill Way. Councilmember Glover.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Bennett.
Public Works approved 4-4, 0 against.
Councilmember Harrison.
Traffic and Parking approved 2-4 and 0 against.
Councilmember Hunt.
Planning and Zoning approved 9-4, 0 against.
Councilmember Glover.
I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Now it bills on third reading. BL 2013-588 changes .57 acres from R6 to SP zoning for properties located within the Woodland and Waverly Historic Preservation District at 2107, 2111, and 2115 White Avenue to permit up to 8 residential dwelling units. Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. All committee reports are in. I'm going to move for approval. I do have a brief explanation as well.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Moore.
There was still some concerns about this bill, and I would like for Mrs. Carlett from the Planning Department, if she could, there was some information that I sent over to you to at least explain, about some of the community members' concerns. Could you do that, please?
Sure. What the council lady had sent to me were concerns about how an SP could be applied in an area where there's historic zoning district. And I had responded that actually this was envisioned as something that could happen when the SP was created as a zoning tool. SP is considered a base zoning district, so it replaces the base zoning district that is on the property today. And it is required to comply with the community plan, or else it should not be approved. And so for this SP proposal, the community looked at, or the Planning Commission looked at whether the proposal for the cottage development met the conditions of the community plan, which in this case calls for single-family detached housing. And the cottage development does meet that single-family detached housing, and the density that's proposed is within the range that's in place in the neighborhood plan for Woodland and Waverly. The council lady also had issues raised to her asking whether this was should be considered a spot zoning. I think that term is inaccurately applied here. Spot zoning occurs when a property is rezoned in a way that does not fit with the community plan, and where the uses and the zoning are are radically different from the uses and zoning that are in place today. And this proposal is for single-family detached housing in a cottage development in a neighborhood that has single-family detached housing. It's not asking for commercial or office or industrial, something radically different than what is there today.
Thank you, Mrs. Carlett. I placed on each council member desk general information from the Metro Historical Commission, and I'm just going to read the latter part of that. The overlay protects the historic character of the district by guiding physical change using a set of design guidelines based on the National Park Service Secretary of Interior standards. Both the National Register of Historic Places nomination and Historic Preservation zoning identify property as either contributing or non-contributing. Changes to contributing buildings must be appropriate for the individual home and the district as a whole. Changes to non-contributing homes need only be appropriate for the district, not necessarily the building itself, since it isn't historic. This property is not historic, it is non-contributing. I just want to say, with the time that I have left, those individuals that have called, emailed, and attended the scheduled meetings, they have shared their comments, petitions, and thoughts both for and against this proposed development. I have taken it every consideration. I like to be fair about everything that I do, all these comments and thoughts into very, very careful consideration. There were several comments that were concerns that were restricted neighborhoods, historical issues, affordability, rentals, college students taking over the area, parking issues. I know that zone change is very difficult and had issues that need to be addressed. I'm hopeful that moving this forward, that we will work together as neighbors so that we can live in harmony. In closing, I move for approval of this project. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2013-622 changes 5.5 acres from R15 to IWD zoning for a portion of property at 2487 Pulley Road. Councilmember Johnson.
Yes, I would like to move for approval with a brief explanation.
Councilmember Hunt, do you have a committee report?
A committee report, please. I'm sorry.
Yes, Planning, Zoning, and Historic Committee approved, 9-4-0 against.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Mayor Neighbors. I've done that twice tonight. I would like to move for approval with a brief explanation.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember.
I would like to make the following statement for the record. My intent was to include a condition in the bill for a small dirt road, a short dirt road that connects this property to Pulley Road so that it would not be extended for access. However, I have been advised that since this is a straight rezoning to IWD, such a condition cannot be added to the bill, but I want to clearly state that the intent is that this road not be extended. I've spoken with the developer and their attorney, Mr. Sean Henry, and they both have agreed and expressed that they have no interest in using this road. And with that comment, I move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2014-651 amends the Metro Zoning Code pertaining to the regulation of temporary music events. Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I have an amendment.
We have a motion and a second on the amendment.
Do I need committee reports before the amendment? Sorry. Committee reports.
Hunt.
Yes, Planning and Zoning approved with an amendment, 9-4-0 against.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen.
Now we'll move the amendment.
And now you have a second. Councilmember Allen.
The amendment just is, this bill has gone through a number of changes as I have received input from many people who've been very interested in this bill. This particular amendment has three parts to it. One just sort of more exactly clarifies what a small amplifier is. The second amendment gives more of an option for revocation of the permit, and the third amendment adds a spacing requirement. So those were further amendments to make the neighborhood associations more comfortable with this bill. So with that, I would move approval for the amendment.
All in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Opposed, no. The amendment passes. Councilmember.
Now I would like to move for approval with a brief explanation.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Allen.
So to reiterate what I said at second reading, the goal of this bill was to create an opportunity for outdoor music events in certain commercial areas where they are not currently possible. It does not affect the downtown code area or the Gulch or any events that are already permitted by Metro Parks, like Live on the Green, or the street parties that are permitted by Public Works. The existing noise ordinance found in Section 11 of the Metro Code states that it is unlawful to operate any sound amplification equipment so as to create sounds that are plainly audible at the boundary of the nearest residential property. This is good protection for the neighbors, and it's a good thing to have on an ongoing basis, but there's no leeway for special events. So the proposed bill would allow certain commercial properties to be able to apply for permits to hold a limited number of outdoor music events on their property with conditions that would guide sound level, hours of operation, and notification of neighbors. As I said earlier, this bill has gone through a number of iterations. The current version, it was written after input from Metro Public Works, codes, police, planning, neighborhood representatives, small business owners, music industry personnel, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau. I've worked to address the concerns of the planning staff, and I think this current version has dealt with almost everything that I've heard. Councilmember Maynard has a few things that he would like to continue to talk about, and I have agreed that if we need to continue to tweak, I'm happy to begin that process immediately. But I think we've worked really hard and we're close, and I want to keep this going. This bill does not make it harder to make music in Music City. It rather opens up the possibility in some of the smaller commercial areas that are currently limited because of their proximity to residential areas. This possibility is balanced with reasonable protections for the neighborhoods, and it works with the Metro processes that are already in place. I think this is good for Music City, and I ask for your support.
Councilmember Maynard.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and I appreciate Councilwoman Allen. I think she's done a fantastic job. I did bring some concerns, and I appreciate her. I think it is very, very reasonable, and for her, after all these years of working on it, for her to state yesterday and then again to reaffirm today. Let us move it forward. Let's see how it works. If there are some issues that come up, maybe some things we did not think would happen, maybe some things that happen that are good about it but may need to be tweaked later on, she's willing to look at that. So I want to thank Council Lady. I don't want to look too far back. Okay. But I want to thank Council Lady Allen for all of her hard work, and I look forward to working with her in the future.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We need to pull up BL 2014-659. It was mistakenly left off of the agenda. Is there any objection? BL 2014-659 changes 4.18 acres from IR to SP zoning for property located at 1200 49th Avenue North to permit up to 55 residential dwellings. Councilmember Baker.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Committee report.
Councilmember Hunt.
Planning and zoning approved, 9-4-0 against.
Thank you, Councilmember Baker.
Move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2014-673 makes applicable the provisions of the Neighborhood Landmark Overlay District to 17.22 acres of various properties along Gallatin Pike between Virginia Avenue and Broadmoor Drive. Councilmember Bennett.
Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Hunt.
Planning and zoning approved, 9-4-0 against.
Thank you, Councilmember Bennett.
I believe I need to move the substitute.
We have a motion and a second on the substitute.
Mr. Cooper, I believe this is basically clerical, and can you explain?
The substitute adds a number of recital clauses, whereas clauses that, just to provide clarity as to the intent of the bill.
Okay.
I have a motion and a second on the substitute. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Substitute passes.
Now I'd like to move as substituted.
Have a motion and a second.
I would like to express the joy of finally getting this one through. We've been working on it some time. It is wrapping up kind of the end of the SP fix on Gallatin Road. I believe it's the last piece anyway. And with it, we will be able to mark this area as a landmark area in an effort to preserve the old homes that are located, and they're kind of the last of their kind along Gallatin Road. Preserve them, but also allow them to have other business uses. They can make an application and go beyond the simple just light office and residential uses that they can have now. So we're really excited about it. There is one property owner that came to me in the last week with a developer, and I'm going to continue to work with them and trying to move this forward, but I'm excited. I think it's good for the area, and I ask for approval.
We have a motion and a second on the bill as substituted. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2014-674 makes applicable the provisions of a historic bed and breakfast overlay district to 0.34 acres of a property located at 754 Benton Avenue. Councilmember Moore.
I move for approval, Vice Mayor.
Councilmember Hunt.
Planning and zoning approved, 9-4-0 against.
Councilmember Moore.
Thank you. I move for approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2014-675 changes 3.74 acres from IR to MUG zoning for property located at 30 Oldham Street. Councilmember Scott Davis.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like committee reports, please.
Councilmember Hunt.
Planning and zoning historical approved, 9-4-0 against.
Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to move for approval with a brief explanation.
Have a motion and a second. Councilman.
I know people that we make a lot of decisions here, but the recent holiday season when we passed the legislation for the ball field and the other developments in the Germantown side of the city has directly helped my district And without that passing, this development wouldn't have been envisioned coming across that side of the river. So I want to thank Council Lady Gilmore for her leadership, and I also want to thank Councilman Maynard and also the Mayor's Office for helping pushing that. And I want to thank my East Nashville council members for supporting this, and hopefully I could have more support with large-scale developments on this side of the river. Thank you. I'd like to move for approval.
All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2014-676 changes .14 acres from CN to R6 zoning for property located at 1421 9th Avenue North. Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee report.
Councilmember Hunt.
Planning and zoning approved Bill 676940 against.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you. With all committee reports in, I move for approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2014-677 changes .6 acres from MUNA to RS10 zoning for properties located at 2212 and 2216 Riverside Drive. Councilmember Westerholm.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Committee reports.
Councilmember Hunt.
Planning and zoning historical approved Bill 676-940 against.
Councilmember?
No, 677, I'm sorry.
We're on 677.
Okay, I need to correct that then. I thought he's, we deferred that one meeting by rule.
I'll move.
Okay, Councilmember Westerholm.
I'll move to defer one meeting.
We have a motion and a second to defer one meeting. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2014-678 changes 2.63 acres from IR to SP zoning for properties located at 1102 and 1138 3rd Avenue North and 1121 2nd Avenue North to permit a mixed-use development. Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Hunt.
Planning and zoning historical approves Bill 678-940 against.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you. I move for approval. I'm reading these captions, Vice Mayor. That's what I'm doing. I'm reading to make sure. I move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2014-679 changes .21 acres from R6 to RS 3.75 for property located at 1310 Fatherland Street. Councilmember Westerholm.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Committee reports.
Councilmember Hunt.
Planning and zoning historic approved Bill 679-940 against.
Thank you, Councilmember Westerholm.
I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Without objection, we can take 680 and 681 together. Seeing none, 2014-680 changes 39.54 acres from R10, RS10, and RS20 to SP for properties located at 726 Old Hickory Boulevard and Boyd's Hilltop Drive unnumbered to permit up to a 130-bed assisted living facility along with an existing religious institution and associated uses and facilities. 681 cancels the residential plan unit development overlay for 14.59 acres and amends the remaining 16.45 acres located at Boyd's Hilltop unnumbered and Nesbitt Lane unnumbered to permit 35 single-family lots, replacing 78 single-family lots. Councilmember Bennett.
Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Hunt.
Planning and zoning approved Bill 680 and 681-940 against.
Councilmember Bennett.
Move approval, please.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Bedney.
Yeah, I saw a letter, an email. I don't know if we can bring it in the record, but there was a question on an email about some driveway. Is that related to this, related to Mr. Harlan?
The gentleman that sent, may I respond? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be rude. The gentleman that sent the letter, or his attorney sent the letter for him, there's some confusion about a past easement. That doesn't really affect this legislation, so he did speak with me tonight, and I just suggested that their attorneys get together and try to work out whatever issue that they have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. 680 and 681 pass.
There we go.
BL 2014-682 makes applicable the provisions of the Clayton Avenue Urban Design Overlay to 21.27 acres of various properties located along Clayton Avenue, Craig Avenue, and Leland Lane. Councilmember Moore.
Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Hunt.
Planning and zoning approved Bill 682, 940 against.
Councilmember Moore.
I move for approval, Vice Mayor.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2014-684 amends the Metro Zoning Code to modify the definition and conditions of accessory dwelling detached. Councilmember Hunt.
Thank you, Madam President. Planning and Zoning Historic Committee approved Bill 684, 940 against, and I'll end with move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I'd just like to ask Ms. Carlett if I can. We're on this UDO bill, and I think there's still a little bit of confusion. This is the accessory dwelling unit just with UDOs. If you can explain what this one is and how it's different from the text amendments that are down the line on the planning side, I'd appreciate that.
Certainly. The bill that is before you tonight establishes that there can be detached accessory dwelling units in adopted urban design overlays where the UDO has standards for those. So it would not be permitting detached accessory dwelling units anywhere else, only where there's an adopted UDO and it has rules for those.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next is 2014-686, authorizes the Director of Public Property to accept 2 parcels of property from the Metropolitan Development and Housing Agency for the construction of the West Riverfront Park improvements and amphitheater. Councilmember Gilmore.
Oh, my Jesus. All right. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Looks like all committee reports are in, and I move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Mitchell.
Yeah, John, is this the thermal plant site?
It's a portion of that property, yes. It's not, I don't have the map right in front of me, but it's adjacent to that site where the new riverfront development that the council authorized is being constructed.
So we're putting an amphitheater on the thermal plant site?
Yes, along with some other riverfront improvements.
And how much are we spending on this?
I believe the council authorized $25 million. Let me look. Yeah, $25 million in June 2013 for it.
So how big is the amphitheater? Seat how many?
I have not seen the plans, or I don't recall specifically. Do you know, Rich?
Yes, Councilman, it's still the final plans are not finalized, but it'll be about 2,000 seats, and then it'll be able to seat about another 4,000, 4,500 in the lawn area. So total will be a little over 6,000, 6,500.
Will we have parking for that?
There's lots of parking downtown.
So, in essence, probably was a good spot for a baseball stadium. Thank you.
You lost.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next is BL 2014-687, designates specified areas of downtown Nashville as a temporary special event zone during the time period beginning at 6 o'clock a.m. on Wednesday, April 2nd, 2014, and ending at 6 o'clock p.m. on Wednesday, April 9th, 2014, for the 2014 National Collegiate Athletic Association Women's Final Four basketball tournament and related activities and events. Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. With all committee reports in, I move for approval.
We have a motion and a second.
And just a brief explanation.
Go right ahead.
I just hope all the young women that play basketball in this city come out and take advantage of the clinics. That's all I wanted to say. I know that Martin Luther King's Lady Royals made it to the state this year, and they did a wonderful job, and that's the first time they did it in years. And that's tied to this, so I hope that people come out and take advantage of the clinics. All right, I move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Berry.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just wanted to also echo Council Lady Gilmore's encouragement for the NCAA Women's Final Four, but I also wanted to just take a moment and recognize our own Vice Mayor for all of the leadership that she has given to get this here. So thank you so much.
Everybody come on down for Super Saturday. Next is BL 2014. We need to take a vote. You get me sidetracked on basketball and I lose it. All in favor of 687, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2014-688 approves agreements between Metro Government, the Metro Hospital Authority, and several private entities for the lease and disposition of the Bordeaux Long-Term Care and the J.B. Knowles Home Facilities, and declares that the private sector can provide long-term care services on a more economical basis, making such services no longer necessary as a government function. Councilmember Maynard.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Move for approval with a brief explanation.
We have a motion and a second. Councilman.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. We had a lengthy discussion both in the committees as well as last meeting during the second hearing for this particular legislation. It is historic in nature. I want to thank the administration. I want to thank the committee members. I want to thank this council. I want to thank Councilman Linnell Matthews for working so diligently with not only the hospital authority administration as well as myself and others in order that we deal with the legacy and the heritage of Bordeaux Hospital and Knowles Home by maintaining on-site at Bordeaux and Knowles a continuation of high-quality healthcare services to those residents while protecting our Metro employees as they transition from working for Metro government or the quasi-governmental entity of the hospital authority to working with a private entity. I'd like to thank the administration also, and specifically Rich Riebling and Saul Solomon, as we discussed the importance that Signature, which is our private partner with Bordeaux, recognize SEIU, the union, who is the bargaining agent for those Metro employees, that they, one, recognize them. And for those of you who have not been involved in negotiations when you have a public facility who now is going to be managed privately, many times that does not happen. But in this case, it did happen. And not only do they recognize the SEIU and Signature have come to an agreement. And that is important to announce today. The SEIU and Signature, our private partner, have come to an agreement as of today regarding those employees. The last thing I want to say is that as we look at Bordeaux and as we look at Knowles, for those who have not been to that area, it is a beautiful, beautiful facility. It not only is an economic engine, it not only is a healthcare provider, but it also will be developed, and we will then have green space because the parks will have a portion of it. We will have new housing development. You will have an infusion of capital that will improve the quality of care of both Knowles and Bordeaux. Finally, let me say this. For those of us who care about high quality care, especially for the least of these, I've been in healthcare law since 1993. It's important not only that we provide that care for the least of these, but we also then take into account the taxpayers who are actually fitting the bill. And in this situation, we will save taxpayers approximately $10.5 million. So think about it. We'll increase the quality of care. We'll sustain the heritage and history of Bordeaux and Knowles. We'll make sure that our Metro employees are taken well care of, and we'll save taxpayers money. I can't think of a better contract, a better private-public relationship and contract than that. Thank you, Councilman Matthews, again, working with us on that. I appreciate you.
Councilmember Mitchell.
John, do you know, is there pending state legislation that's required to get this approved?
In order for the bed licenses to be divided between the two facilities, the new Dickerson Pike facility and the existing Bordeaux site, there is a state bill, state legislation that is required or will be required.
Do we know the status of that piece of state legislation?
I believe it has passed the Senate House, and it's still in committee in the House. That's my understanding as of today.
Okay, I think that bill got deferred. It may have been taken off notice today in the House. But we're talking about the employees. We've got nearly 300 Metro employees that we hear they've been taken care of now. They've got a 6-month contract is what was reached. No longer than that, 6 months. So after 6 months, your phone's going to start ringing when these employees are treated just like the janitors were at the school system. When they're going to get the opportunity to go from their health plan they have now to probably a $5,000 deductible. When they have their pension now, and they're going to get the opportunity with their $15,000 to $20,000 a year job to put money in their 401k. I think we're moving a little quick on this, and I really have reservations when we have such a public asset that we didn't have an RFP process on. I mean, that's just basic fiduciary duty of us to have an RFP process on something this large in our community. I really have grave concerns that we did not have an RFP process for this deal. So with that being said, I'm going to vote no tonight if we're going to push this on. And I advise you to think long and hard before you push your button tonight in support of this, because there's nearly 300 Metro employees. There's 200. The reason this deal is so lucrative, it's not the facility, it's the 200 beds, the certificate of need, ladies and gentlemen. You can't get that right now. And those 200 bed certificate of need, 100 they've already said are leaving this community that's very much needed. And they're not going back to that poor neighborhood ever again. How long is the other 100 going to stay there? So with that being said, I think I have grave reservations on this legislation, and I think we're moving too quickly on it.
Councilmember Stein.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Mr. Cooper, Mr. Riebling, was there an RFP process? And if so, will you describe it, please? Or Mr. Solomon?
We retained an outside consultant to help us through this process, since we're not that experienced in actually trying to sell a business. We were committed to selling this as a business, not just to sell to the property. We sent feelers out to 162 members nationally, people who participate in the healthcare industry. That was after we developed a 60, 70-page book that described the business. We solicited interest to see whether or not anybody on that list would like to receive a copy of the book. Out of the 162 people we contacted, 63 asked to receive the book. All of them received the book. Out of those 63, we received 6 proposals. So that's what the process was.
Madam Vice Mayor, members of the council, I mean, clearly, there are rare opportunities in the life of this city where an arrangement is arrived at that actually is truly a win-win. If Metro wanted to maximize its savings in all of this, we would have just sold the beds. We would have not cared about the patients. We would not have cared about the employees. We would have not shown any respect for the community. But we didn't do any of that here. Indeed, we have arrived at an arrangement that maintains and probably will improve the quality of care for the patients in these facilities. We have arrived at an agreement that does its very best for the employees involved. And I'm sorry that some council members don't have any confidence in the Service Employees Union and their representation of these folks, but they've entered into an MOU. They've signed off on this. As to the community, I think Councilman Matthews can verify that this is actually going to enhance the community ultimately, adding the green space, keeping the facilities there. And on top of all that, for those that are most concerned about our savings taxpayer dollars, we're doing all of that, and we're going to save some $10 million over the next several years and reduce the subsidy to the hospital authority. So if ever there was something that this community, this administration, and this council, and Councilman Maynard and Councilman Matthews' leadership has been essential here, but collectively that we have done and put together that is truly win-win for this community, this is it. And I urge everyone to vote yes this evening.
Councilmember Langster.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Mr. Solomon, Mr. Legal Director, we did follow the legal process in arriving with the signature being the person responsible for taking over Board of.
We more than complied with any legal process that was required. Yes.
And it could stand up to any legal scrutiny that may be given to it.
You know, lawyers hate giving answers like that, but in this case, I will say yes.
Thank you very much. And the state legislation, they have also examined our legal process in getting this satisfied.
That probably not. It's just one part of the whole transaction. But for us to get the state process going, once legislation is passed, this body has to first have acted and approved. And we want to show the state that we believe in this legislation, that we believe in this deal, so they'll be eager to pass it once it does reach the floor of the House.
Thank you.
Councilmember Baker.
Just question.
We have a motion and a second on previous question. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Previous question passes. We're going to have a machine vote. Madam Clerk, please close the machine and tally the vote.
I have 29 for, 1 against, 0 abstentions.
Motion passes. BL 2014-689 authorizes Metro government to abandon retained easement rights in the former right-of-way of the Old Ben Allen Road for properties located at 3803 Saunders Avenue and Hart Lane. Councilmember Bennett.
Move approval.
Second. Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2014-690 abandons retained easement rights in the former right-of-way of the 45th Avenue North for property located at 4502 Illinois Avenue. Councilmember Baker.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2014-691 abandons easement rights retained in the former alley number 1017B for property located at Chester Avenue unnumbered. Councilmember Hunt.
Move for approval, please.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2014-692. I just want to remind folks we're very close to not having a quorum. We have several folks out tonight. BL 2014-692 authorizes Metro government to abandon 15 linear feet of 6-inch public water main along public fire hydrants and abandons an 8-inch public sewer main and all easement rights for property located along George E. Davis Boulevard, Charlotte Avenue, Shanklin Street, and Nelson Mary Street. Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. For the record, I'm here, and I move for
yes,
approval.
Yes, you are.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
You moved, and do we have a second? Second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2014-693 Authorizes Metro government to accept permanent and temporary easements for the Tulip Grove Road Stormwater Improvement Project for 4 properties located at 906 and 910 Tulip Grove Road and Tulip Grove Road unnumbered. Councilmember Glover.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Councilmember Tygart.
Before we adjourn, if I need courtside seats for the women's Final Four, do I see you?
We'll talk.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn? All in favor, please say aye.